Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Esrina Fewings from the University of Western Australia, and it's my pleasure to introduce Amrita Kaur, who will introduce her other fellow speakers from the Wenjuqin University. Amrita is and fellow speakers' paper is entitled Students Faculty Partnerships Undertaking a Collaborative SoTL Inquiry. This will be a 20-minute presentation with a 10-minute question and answer section at the end of the session. Please be aware that this is being recorded, so we invite you to turn off your videos and microphones until the end of the presentation. Please do include your questions in the chat feature, which is located on the right-hand side of this window, or feel free to raise your hand. The icon is located at the top left-hand side of the window. If there is a particular question that you would like to have a response to, that's in the chat feature, please click on the like icon, and when we get to the question and answer section, we'll get Amrita and her fellow speakers to respond accordingly. So Amrita, over to you, and you can start your presentation.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
Definitely.
Yes? Okay, perfect. Good morning, everyone here in China. I'm Amrita, and I have my student partner. I'm not sure if Lulu's camera is open and she can see. So hello, everyone. And I know that we have very little time, so I'll try and be concise in sharing our SoTL research. The title of our research is Student-Faculty Partnership Undertaking a Collaborative SoTL Inquiry. The title does not reflect the topic of investigation because our focus is more on how the collaboration happened. I am trying to change my slide. Yes, I hope everybody can see. I think through this slide, I'm trying to communicate that along with SoTL inquiry, SoTL inquiry is an important focus. But what is important here is we are talking about how did we bring in students together to collaborate. It is not new to invite students to collaborate in SoTL inquiry, but what was unique about this collaboration is me as faculty and my student partners, we tried our best to enact partnership values into it. Partnership values of respect, reciprocity, collaborative inquiries, shared responsibility, so that we made sure we both gave platform to each other to shape this SoTL inquiry. Now, something very interesting, and I will quickly go over it. So when I was coming to China, I wasn't expecting that big culture difference. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've been in Asia and I know what Asian teaching is like. However, there were a few things in China that took me, that intrigued me, few students' behaviors. And one of that was empty row phenomena. And empty row phenomena is not new or exclusive to China. It can happen anywhere. But the way students were behaving was extremely intriguing. They would come in the class and nobody would, like very few, if at major courses and all. And during that meeting, I brought up this issue of students not choosing to sit in front rows. And this is where I got some students interested, and they started sharing possible reasons why students don't choose to sit in front. And this is where the SoTL journey began. So I would like to emphasize this is something that preceded the SoTL methodology, which is about student partnership, came upon, and 5 students volunteered, and students came from different levels. There was one freshman to sophomore to join the SoTL inquiry. As Peter Felton has advocated, that meeting with students in scholarship of teaching and learning is one of the good practices in SoTL. Of course, Healy has highlighted the significance of inviting students as co-researchers, because we cannot just go on treating them like subjects of research inquiry.
Amrita, I'm just going to interrupt you because you have been intermittently coming in and out. So I recommend that you turn your video off. Meng, would you mind turning off your video as well? And that may help with the streaming.
Thank you. Lulu will talk about literature review and methodology. Lulu, you can keep your video turned off because there's a problem with bandwidth.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Lulu, and it is my privilege to talk about the research of seating arrangement, what really matters. And now I will briefly introduce the literature review part. Actually, the literature review of our interests are not so many. However, luckily, we found some articles that of great qualities. For example, we found that the architectural factors that was be researched by the Benedict and Hogue, and they explored how to influence students' seating selection and how to further result in students' academic performance and motivation. And the next is like the Totosek and the Spicer. They explore the students' personality facts and how it influences students' seating selection, and like seating location and grade probability. And yes, that's the literature review part. Yes, and the next is the research gaps. Actually, the biggest gap in our research is the methodology gap, because we found that almost all the research related to seating arrangement is the quantitative studies, and all of the factors and the antecedents are predetermined by the researchers. But we thought that it's the students who did participate in the seating selection, and we would like to know how they think and how they make the decision. So we designed the open-ended question and make the face-to-face interview with the students in WKU. And next is cultural and background gap, because our university is Sino-Chinese university, and it's not the, the students in our university came from the traditional Chinese background. However, the teaching style here is totally come from the Western. And we think that the pedagogical differences can make our research very unique. And the last one is a content gap, that the factors that determine students' seating selections are scarce. And yes, that's the gap. And refer to our research objective and framework. We designed, like in the picture, we can see that the first is a factor. We always like to again what factors behind the seating preference. Like maybe some students they make the decision mainly out to their self motivations, and because they want to be like a student who want to be a straight A student, and they always prefer to sit in the front because they think sit in the front they can hear clearly and see clearly, and it's beneficial for them to get a higher grades and form a better relationship with their professors. And the phenomenon of the mechanism is that the students always want to sit in the front rows. Yes, that's our framework. And the methodology, the first, needless to say, we start with the exploratory qualitative research design, and then we obtain the ethical approval. Due to the epidemic, so we won't go to other universities because the pandemic policies strict in China. So we just follow the convenient sampling, and we recruited 20 students at our university, Wenzhou University, via like our Chinese daily social media. And we formed the unstructured face-to-face interview by students' partners. And now we are in the stage that we will translate all the data and yes, transcribe them. And finally, we to have the thematic analysis.
Yeah, so Lulu just presented the framework, objective, and the literature review of the study, and I just spoke it with my microphone muted. So I was talking about like the kind of confidence Lulu has shown in presenting the background and the literature review and methodology of this SoTL inquiry. It tells me that how intensely the students were engaged into this inquiry, and it has given them this focus, this confidence to talk about it. So we have almost finished our data collection, and we are at the preliminary stages of data analysis. I'm going to talk briefly about the research findings, or you can say the questions that I was looking for into this inquiry, like why would my students not choose to sit in front rows? And as I was talking in the beginning, I had shared this concern with my students, and they said, let's go and find it out together. And the findings, I think, are very interesting. There are certain academic factors. We have divided our codes into two major themes. We are still analyzing our data, but these are our preliminary findings. So we have divided these in academic factors and culture factors. And I was extremely surprised to know certain things. So one of them is the type of course. So students said that it depends on type of course they are attending. What credit, how much credit does a course carry also decides where they would like to sit. So for example, student would be like, if this is a 1 credit course, I don't want to sit in front and be engaged because, you know, maybe they have some other things, or they do not want to spend that much of energy and time into that course. Also, we have, because it is a Sino-American university, but we do have certain Chinese courses that do not add up to the final GPA of students. So students said it depends on the type of course they are talking about. I think I will choose the themes and go. Another important thing, another finding that really surprised me was about gender and peers. So students said they would like to sit close to their friends because there are certain elective courses which are taken from students of different disciplines. So they said we are always looking for our peers, and I mean we asked why is that so, and they're like, we feel more safe and confident sitting along with people who we know. And something interesting within the same theme was they like to sit with the same gender. So boys said they would be a little bit uncomfortable if they sit next to a girl. So when they enter a class and they see girls sitting in the front row, a boy would choose to go and sit a little bit far from that. And that came as a big surprise to me. The other point, which was very cultural, was courtesy and respect. Student mentioned, like if they're a few minutes late in the class, it would be disrespectful for them to walk in front of teacher and sit in the front row. So they would prefer to enter the room with the back door and then sit. Some students said that if they come to a class on day 1 and they choose a position because of any reason, because they were late or whatever reason, they would not like to change that position, feeling that other students might feel like invasion of privacy, or because somebody has already sat there, so they would not like to change their place, the seating, the seats. Other factors the student highlighted were the confidence and the competence they feel in subject, which I think is very common. If you think you are confident in mathematics or statistics, student would choose to sit in front so they can engage more with teachers. But if they think they're not confident, they might choose to sit at the back. And then subject and interest difficulty level. Yes, of course, if they're interested in subject, they want to ask more questions, they would choose to sit in front, or else they would sit at the back. Now, what are the insights of these findings for my teaching and learning in the SoTL project? I think one thing I have learned in last 1 year being at this campus in China is that I need to create flexible seating arrangements so that I can overcome the barriers that students have mentioned in our findings. And I have, reminded myself to reconsider group making strategies. I was of that belief that I would like students of different disciplines and different genders to come together and have discussion in class. But I think that is not going to work because students choose to sit along with peers of the same gender and also of similar discipline or they are familiar with. Of course, one of the thing that I had to reconsider now in my teaching is communicate course relevance, because as students thought that there were some courses which did not carry as much credit as other courses, so they would choose not to engage in those courses and sit at the back or not sit where they can engage with students and with teachers and students. So I think communicating course relevance is a very important thing I should be reminded. And another thing, I think I need to enter my class and communicate confidence and competence in my students, because most students, especially in China, they are reluctant to communicate in English. So they would like to sit towards like far away from teacher, not in the front row, so that they can save themselves from not answering questions or maybe engaging with students. I will quickly come back to one of our final slides is what are the faculty and student gains of this collaborative SoTL inquiry. I think I'll continue talking about my gains and then Lulu can talk about what she has gained in this collaborative inquiry. So one most important thing is, of course, as I spoke in my previous slide, was about teaching and learning implications. But the best thing that happened is the insights into local cultural context. I think my findings are rich and I've got better information just because I brought students in. Had I not included these students and the SoTL inquiry was solely on me or with some other faculty who is foreign to China, I think the findings would not have been that rich. Now, why is that so? Because when student went on to interview and collect data, I think this was very informal and the data was honest. The student would not have been dishonest with me, and they shared the factors that determine their seating arrangement. And the other thing was the interviews were conducted in Chinese, and I would not been able to do that had I not invited the students together for this inquiry. This is why I think the research validity, because of there's no language or the teacher bias, has increased. So that was one of the benefits of bringing students into SoTL inquiry. And of course, I think one thing that I've felt is the connect between student and teachers. Student met me and we worked after office hours outside of classroom. There was no grading. There was like our discussions were informal. We met at odd times. We met in odd ways. We would sit down in cafeterias or we'll meet in corridors and talk about it. So I think the student faculty divide has almost vanished. And I hope the students would, we would not have that power distance, and that would not affect their seating decisions when they come and attend my other classes. And of course, the knowledge transfer and skills between us. Lulu, quickly, would you like to share what were your gains?
Yes, okay. During the research, the biggest gap that I had is research skills. My research skills did grows dramatically, and I also build confidence, and I get the motivations to do further studies with my professors, and I always want to ask why and explore the knowledge that I am not familiar with, because I had formed the closer relationship with my professors. And, during the research, I did put my theory that I had learned into the real practice. And I also meet very excellent peers and professors. And yes, I'm very happy to join the research.
I'll just move on to our last slide before we take some questions. Of course, this journey was not without its challenges. The two major challenges that we faced were about time and language issues. The teaching loads and the students' classroom loads, they were conflicting. We found it very difficult to come together and decide what are we going to next in our research. So time was one thing, but of course we devised certain ways. Social media platforms, instant messaging, online meetings to overcome this challenge. And there was another challenge of language. Some students in the research group were hesitant to talk because of limited English speaking abilities. And how did we overcome this? We like Lulu, and there are a few other students who think they are pretty fluent in English language. We try to bring them over and then engage other students as well. And these are our references, and thank you very much. We are open for questions and answers.
As Amrita has invited, please do feel free to turn on your microphones and raise your hands if you'd like to ask a question, or feel free to write it in the chat function on the right-hand side. Andy?
Hi, Andy, yes.
Hello, thank you very much for your study. It's really interesting, and I appreciate that you're working on this difficult partnership between faculty members and students, and in a way that both hopefully gain from. I haven't done a study like this before, but it intrigues me quite a bit, and I'm wondering what your advice might be for someone, now that you've done a study like, I don't know how many of these you've done before, but now that you've done at least one, what might be your advice for someone attempting to do this for the first time? Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for asking this question. And I'm so glad that somebody is intending to do that. I have done these studies previously, and these studies could be a little bit more challenging in Asian context, given the teacher-student power dynamics. But I would recommend you to go and read International Journal of Students as Partner, has a lot of literature about it. And I think it is considered more as a Western practice currently, and there are very few case studies or examples of the studies you would find held in Asian context. So our challenges are more about power dynamics. The word partnership is controversial, even in Western context. Like, how can students be your partners? You know, how can you be together? And what do we have to learn from students? But I think I'm a passionate advocate. I mean, like I told you, in China, students were not even ready to sit close to me and listen to my lecture. But I brought them in 1 year to that stage that we have come together almost like colleagues. And they don't mind the limitations of language skills. They have opened up and they are excelling. So the challenge that you might face in the beginning is your colleague. It's your department, the adults, not the students. People are going to look at you and it's like, hey, do you have that much time? Are you going to sit together and talk to students? Who has the time to correct their work and you guide them at every step? So that is one challenge you should be ready to expect. However, it is fulfilling as teachers. You feel amazing, and the students go and they talk about you, and you create those wonderful dynamics that your classes go effortless because of the relationship that you build with students. So first challenge expected from your own colleagues, from your own departments. I think it is getting popular, it is getting acceptance. The second challenge would be bringing students on board. Not all students feel confident, and this is the mission of student-faculty partnership, to convey that yes, you can do it. You have the knowledge. You can help me. You can bring in something you can bring in a perspective that I don't have. So these are the two major challenges that you may face. But I think once you have done it, I think you will get addicted to it because it is so fulfilling and it is satisfying. Thank you again, Andy, for your question.
Great, thank you. That sounds good.
Amrita, just to follow on from your conversation that you had with Andy just then, how do you promote that acceptance within your colleagues? You know, what was it that kind of was that X factor that kind of garnered that journey of acceptance?
Perfect. I think it's an important question again. How do you influence people? So as I said, in the beginning, people around you would wonder, what are you going to do with students? You know, I still have my colleagues in China. There's a WeChat app where I've got like 15 students and we are undertaking this inquiry. And I have some colleagues in that who have agreed to see how does it work. and they would message me, is like, how do you manage to communicate with your student all the time? And when answer to your question is, when your colleagues see you flourish in these relationships, they feel motivated. And the best thing is, you can put this collaborative work as a research inquiry and you can publish. And when you get published and when you make your achievements public, people read it, and this is one way they get inspired. Then your colleagues would see the dynamics that you have created with your students. They get inspired. And I think right now this movement is becoming popular. Many universities are funding this student partners. And I think funding opportunity is one way to motivate colleagues when they see that you can collaborate with them and you can do so many things together, and it also counts as your research and you can get funding. So these are, I think, few ways to motivate your colleagues. I think I hope I answered your question.
Yes, no, great. Thanks, Amrita. Meng, we have one quick question and then we will end the session.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's very informative. And I just have one quick question about how did you navigate those kind of challenging power dynamic in your partnership? Because you mentioned you find in Asian context, especially in Chinese context, or I read some work of yours from Malaysia context, you might find this kind of power dynamic is really challenging. I want to know more about how did you manage this kind of thing and what kind of strategy you are using?
Yes, thank you, Meng, asking this question and reading my work. You may, I can guide you to a book chapter that I have published with one student partner, and I did this collaborative partnership. That student was my pedagogical consultant, and I basically, the original work is done by Alison Cook Sather in Bryn Mawr College, where she appoints students as pedagogical consultant. They would sit at the back of your class, observe your classes, and give you feedback. I wanted to replicate the model in Malaysian context. And guess what? My student said he cannot observe a teacher. He cannot give feedback to teacher. He cannot tell teacher this was not right in your class, and he cannot tell teacher this is how you need to do it. So how do I overcome? The first thing is you need to communicate competence and confidence in students. Okay, and we need to tell them that your perspective matters to me and how useful your perspective to me. I think we are coming up with certain work in which we are highlighting some ways. So one of this is communicating confidence and respecting their voices, listening to them, and bringing that to my practice. Like, hey, you told me not to do this and I'm doing it. And that again helps them believe that what they are thinking and they're saying is meaningful. I think I'm running out of time.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you, Amrita. Thank you for the very insightful presentation. We invite our participants to also private message in if you want to learn more about this presentation. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the ISSOTL conference.